Hello there. Keir Starmer has just done the one thing that will have students and student unions in universities raging across the country. He's raising tuition fees. Expect the screams of our multicoloured-haired soy latte guzzling pupils studying duck psychology to echo through the classrooms. Oh dear, how sad. Never mind. Yes, old Deadeyes himself, Keir Starmer, will be about as popular in the liberal left-wing student unions as Rachel Reeves in a farmer's market. Surely education is meant to be free for our uni-going little darlings. Isn't that a big lefty thing? Free education for all at the point of delivery? Remember the Lib Dems after their jaunting coalition with the Tories? The issue of tuition fees wiped them out for a decade. And then there's the matter of the Labour Party manifesto. I had a look at that and it didn't seem to mention tuition fees and education and that sort of thing. Isn't this a tax on education? Shock horror! After 8 years of them not rising, Bridget Phillipson, the Education Secretary, plans to raise tuition fees in line with inflation and increase maintenance loans for poorer students. Fees will go up from £9,250 a year to £9,526 from next September, and speculation out there says it could reach £10,500 in 5 years' time. The only happy people will be the unis and their staff. At least they get to keep their jobs, keep the unis open and solvent, and be in line for a pay rise. Now, I'm not saying I think these fees should go up or down. I just think far too many people go to uni these days. It needs a massive scaling back, and then we could give grants for the best, as we once did. And it looks like the reality of all these costs is hitting home hard now. Also remember that the NI, the National Insurance Contribution increase for employers, will also hit universities, as will the increased minimum wage for some of their staff. That's even more money that's needed. Now, Laura Trott has only just been appointed by the new Tory leader, Kemi Badenoch, as the Shadow Education Secretary for the Tories, so it will be interesting to see how she attacks this. Now the unis will be relieved. More money for them, as I said. Despite the massive growth in foreign students pouring money into their wide-open moors, with no cap on fees. Even with that, 40% of unis are expected to go into deficit this year. 40%. And the reason given for that is that the Tories cut back on student-dependent visas to try and cut back on immigration. 16% fewer, because they couldn't bring Granny with them. Yes, 16% reduction. And that seems to be having the effect of cutting the funding for universities, so they need more from the government in some form. Because remember, those student loans are paid up front by the government or government bodies to give to the universities, and then in future years, 10 or 20 years' time, the students, when they're working, will pay them back. So we're fronting up with all the costs right now. And the scuttlebutt is that Labour will reform the whole uni education funding system after this rise. And I would reckon that would mean many more free courses for many more students. But free for them does not mean free for us, nor is it beneficial to us in the long term And in the wider picture, I just don't think it's in our interests to send loads and loads and loads of people to university to soak up years of their life being unproductive in their younger years when they should be being productive for the economy. This government will not let the woke brainwashing system collapse, though. It needs to extend it to more of our offspring, doesn't it? Because that is the springboard into gaining power in politics, the police, the health service, education to keep the ball rolling. You get the picture, don't you? Reducing uni numbers and getting youngsters into work early is not part of the plan. They might go off script. They might start reading things they're not meant to read and forming ideas they're not meant to form. This conditioning needs to continue for as long as possible. This woke conditioning. You know that, I know that, and they know that. Now, according to the latest data, 65% of full-time undergrads will repay their loans in full. So a third will not. So what was the point of that? But it is a big rise from previous 22 to 23% predictions. And that's due to an increase in repayment term from 30 years to 40 years and a reduction in salary requirements from 30,000 to 25,000 a year. And that drags more into the repayment net. I'm not sure Labour likes this, the Labour hard left. How will they take this? Raising tuition fees? Is that a lefty thing to do? As I said, I'm sure they will aim for more students and more of them for free study. And only central taxation has the firepower for this. Is this part of the 20, or was it the £50 billion black hole? Now, I earlier talked about the impact on unis of the increased minimum wage and the NI increases for employers. And I remember lefties saying a couple of weeks ago that if employers can't afford to pay proper wages and the increased minimum wage, then they should not be in business. But that never seems to apply to the lefties' favoured operations, such as the NHS and unis. But private sector has to suck it up. However, raising tuition fees goes against the lefty woke beliefs. So Starmer has added students to a growing list of those being trampled on: pensioners, farmers, business owners, family businesses, and the rest of them. But it looks like there will be another group added to that. Something that makes it look like even their core woke beliefs are not sacrosanct. We don't trust them anyway, but how will any of this help keep them their core Labour support? And this new group I'm talking about is those who believe that the UK owes them trillions for the slave trade centuries ago. David Lammy, the Foreign Secretary, has now ruled out handing over billions in reparations. What a shock! Like those Caribbean leaders within the Commonwealth who are salivating at the thought of billions and trillions coming their way from us. But talking to the BBC, David Lammy said, "It's not about the transfer of cash, particularly at a time of cost of living crisis around much of the globe, and certainly in the UK. That is not the debate I think that people are wanting to have. They're wanting to think about the future." The future. But not the money. So it's not the transfer of cash, but it sounds to me like it will be something that will cost us money. Yes, a fresh approach that he says works productively from Morocco to Madagascar. Here's some more of what he said. Our new approach will deliver respectful partnerships that listen rather than tell, deliver long-term growth rather than short-term solutions, and build a freer, safer, more prosperous continent. I want to hear what our African partners need and foster relationships so that the UK and our friends and partners in Africa can grow together. Yes, grow together. Sounds rather nice, doesn't it? So instead of a direct cash transfer, it sounds like we'll be paying for maybe infrastructure or other direct help, all for free. And all this from the man who openly supported opening up talks for reparations. Even as Shadow Justice Secretary under Sir Keir Starmer, Lammy said, "The starting point is truth and reconciliation. We're no longer in a society where we question notions like white privilege." I do. I question that idea, like many people I know. And he went on. And then we get to a point where we have to discuss power and reckoning and repairing. And that to some extent is obviously financial and includes endowments. Yes, everything involves money, doesn't it? So anything he agrees to is somehow going to cost us an arm and a leg. Labour gets more and more expensive every single day. Vote them out at every single opportunity.